Before we dive deeper into what happened to Daisy Harper, if this already has you hooked, hit like right now. Share it with anyone who loves mysteries that feel all too possible. And if you're new here, subscribe and turn on notifications. The Harpers were the picture of a happy young family in Pine Ridge Estates, one of those picture-perfect gated communities that sprang up all over Central Florida in the mid-90s. New houses with stucco walls painted soft pastels, tile roofs, screened lanais overlooking tiny backyards with palm trees and sprinklers. The kind of neighborhood where garage doors stayed open on weekends, kids rode bikes in circles, and everyone waved like they'd known each other forever. Tom Harper, 36, was a project manager for a construction firm building strip malls and office parks around Orlando. Steady paycheck, early mornings, home by 6 most nights to throw football in the yard. His wife, Emily, 33, had worked as a pediatric nurse before Daisy was born. After their daughter arrived in June 1992, Emily chose to stay home. She loved the rhythm of it, the library story times, the playgroups at the community center, the way the other moms became instant friends. Daisy was their only child, a bright, chatty little girl who talked in full sentences by age 3 and had an imagination that never stopped running. She had long, dark hair that Emily usually tied into 2 high ponytails with matching ribbons, huge brown eyes that seemed to take in everything, and a laugh that sounded like tiny bells. That spring, she was obsessed with bubbles. Big ones, little ones, the kind you could chase forever. She carried a small plastic bottle of bubble solution everywhere, the wand always sticky in her hand. Her yellow sundress with the tiny embroidered daisies, ironic, everyone would say later, was her favorite. She insisted on wearing it almost every nice day. That Saturday, May 10th, 1997, dawned hot and clear, typical Florida spring, mid-80s by noon, a few puffy clouds drifting by. Emily decided it was perfect park weather. She packed a canvas tote with sunscreen, a couple of juice pouches, goldfish crackers, and Daisy's favorite bubble wand. Tom was at a job site until late afternoon, so it was just the two of them. Emily wore shorts, a light blue tank top, and sandals. Daisy skipped ahead of her the whole walk to the park, ponytails swinging, already blowing bubbles that floated up into the palm fronds. They arrived around 11:30 a.m. Willow Creek Park was alive the way it always was on weekends. Toddlers in the sandbox, bigger kids climbing the jungle gym. Parents clustered near the benches, trading stories about school registration and summer plans. A birthday party was wrapping up at one of the picnic pavilions, balloons still tied to chairs, leftover cake on a table. Emily spotted her friend Megan right away, there with her 2 boys. They claimed a bench about 25 feet from the sandbox, close enough to watch, far enough to let Daisy feel big. Daisy ran straight to the sandbox. She loved the feel of the warm sand between her toes. She knelt down, started digging a moat for an imaginary castle, pausing every few seconds to blow more bubbles. Emily kept one eye on her while chatting with Megan about vacation Bible school and whether they should sign the kids up for swim lessons. Every minute or two she'd glance over, yellow dress, ponytails waving in the air, all good. In the humid spring of 1997, on a sunny Saturday morning in a peaceful Florida suburb outside Orlando, a 5-year-old girl vanished from a bustling neighborhood playground. There was no cry for help, no sign of a fight, no strange face anyone remembered. One moment, Daisy Harper was there, twirling in her favorite yellow sundress with the little flower print, her dark ponytails bouncing as she chased bubbles near the edge of the sandbox. The next moment, she simply wasn't. Completely gone. Disappeared in plain daylight, with families all around, kids shouting on the monkey bars, parents chatting under shaded picnic tables. This wasn't a lonely back road or deserted lot. This was Willow Creek Park, the heart of a gated community called Pine Ridge Estates. New homes with screened porches, palm-lined sidewalks, a sparkling community pool just beyond the trees. Everyone knew their neighbors. Kids played freely. People left bikes unlocked. It was the sort of place where folks said, "This is the safest neighborhood around." And yet, in the blink of an eye, the unthinkable happened. Daisy's mother, Emily Harper, had just turned to hand a juice box to her friend's toddler. It felt like only seconds. When she looked back, the yellow dress was missing from the sandbox. She called Daisy's name once, softly, then sharper. Heads turned. Other moms scanned the slides. Someone checked the swings. Nothing. Minutes stretched into 20, then 40. The playground quieted as whispers spread. By the time the first police car rolled up, yellow tape ringed the entire area, and the air had thickened with something heavier than worry, raw, helpless fear. What came next was one of the biggest missing child operations Central Florida had ever seen. Volunteers walked shoulder to shoulder through every backyard and retention pond. Tracking dogs followed a scent that faded into the drainage ditch behind the park. News helicopters thumped overhead. Divers swept the shallow lakes nearby. Flyers with Daisy's smiling face, gap-toothed grin, big brown eyes went up on every lamppost, every grocery store bulletin board, every minivan window. A reward quickly grew to tens of thousands. Tips poured in, some kind-hearted, most dead ends, a handful of cruel pranks. Psychics offered dreams, strangers phoned confessions. Every trail turned cold. Years rolled by. The posters curled and faded. Cameras moved on. The case folder thickened with unanswered questions, and most folks quietly let it slip into the background, telling themselves these things only happened far away. But the question lingered like humidity in the air. How does a little girl vanish from the center of a crowded park with no clue, no reason, no witness? This is the full story of Daisy Harper's disappearance, from that bright morning in 1997 to the long, winding road that finally led to answers no one saw coming. It's a story of grief that wouldn't let go, of everyday people who kept searching, and of a secret so deeply buried it stayed hidden for over 2 decades.
At some point, Daisy stood up, wandered a little farther toward the low wooden fence that bordered the park on the east side. Beyond the fence was a narrow service road, used mostly by landscapers and garbage trucks, then a thin strip of scrubby woods that ran along the back of the subdivision before opening into a larger nature preserve. Kids sometimes squeezed through a loose board in the fence to retrieve lost balls or frisbees. The gap was small, barely big enough for a 5-year-old, but Daisy was tiny and determined. Emily didn't see her slip through. She was laughing at something Megan said, reaching into the tote for another juice pouch. When she looked up again, maybe 30 seconds later, maybe 45, the yellow dress was no longer in the sandbox. She scanned the playground. No yellow near the slide, no yellow by the swings. Her stomach gave a small twist, but she stayed calm at first. "Daisy?" she called, standing up. "Daisy, honey, come back to Mommy." Megan noticed the shift in her voice and looked around too. Other parents started glancing over. Emily walked toward the sandbox, then circled the equipment, calling louder. "Daisy Harper, where are you?" A dad near the swings asked if everything was okay. Emily's voice rose. "My daughter, she was right here. Yellow dress, ponytails." People began counting their own kids, checking strollers, peering under benches. A teenage boy on a skateboard rode the perimeter path. Someone checked the porta potty by the entrance. Nothing. By now, Emily's heart was hammering. She pulled her flip phone from the tote, fingers trembling as she dialed 911. The dispatcher asked for age, description, last seen. Emily answered in broken sentences, tears already starting. She was blowing bubbles. She was right here. Please hurry. The first patrol car arrived in under 10 minutes, 2 officers from the Orange County Sheriff's Office. They parked near the pavilion, lights off but ready. Officer Ramirez spoke to Emily first while his partner began taping off the playground edges. Emily pointed toward the sandbox, then the fence. "She likes to chase bubbles. They float that way sometimes. She might have followed them." Within half an hour, the park was buzzing with activity. More cruisers, a canine unit on the way. Neighbors arrived with water bottles and flashlights, even though it was still daylight. Someone ran home and came back with a color photo Emily kept in her wallet. Daisy at her kindergarten spring program, grinning in that same yellow dress. Tom got the call while he was still at the job site. His foreman drove him straight home. When he pulled into the driveway and saw the sheriff's car already there, his knees nearly buckled. He ran inside to find Emily on the couch, surrounded by 2 female deputies and Megan, clutching Daisy's little stuffed bunny she'd left on the bench. Emily looked up at him, face streaked with tears, and managed only 3 words. "She's gone, Tom. Daisy's gone."
The house filled fast. Neighbors brought casseroles no one touched. Family drove in from Kissimmee and Sanford. The living room turned into a command post, maps spread on the coffee table, coffee brewing non-stop. Detectives arrived around dusk, notebooks in hand. They asked the same gentle, relentless questions. Had Daisy ever wandered before? Did she talk to strangers? Anyone in the neighborhood seem off? No, no, no. By nightfall, search teams were moving through the woods behind the service road. Floodlights lit the preserve. Divers checked the retention pond half a mile away. Checkpoints went up at the subdivision dates. Local news vans lined up outside the entrance to Pine Ridge. Reporters interviewed shaken neighbors under portable lights. No one slept. The Orange County Sheriff's Office moved fast. By Sunday afternoon, May 11, 1997, the case had been handed to the Major Crimes Unit. Lead detective was Sergeant Carla Vance, a 17-year veteran who had worked child abductions before, mostly non-custody cases involving runaways or family disputes. This was different. A 5-year-old girl lifted from a crowded playground on a bright Saturday morning. No ransom demand, no witnesses to a grab, no suspicious vehicle reported leaving the gates. The command post shifted from the Harper House to the Pine Ridge Community Center, a low building with meeting rooms and a gym just a short walk from the park. Folding tables lined the walls, large maps of the subdivision pinned up, whiteboards covered in timelines, coffee urns brewing around the clock, stacks of flyers ready to hand out. Volunteers poured in, neighbors, co-workers from Tom's company, members of local churches, even retirees from the senior center down the road. They were handed laminated search grids and told the same thing: look for anything yellow, anything small, anything that didn't belong, a ribbon from her ponytail, a bubble wand, a tiny sandal print in the mud. Canine teams arrived first thing Sunday. A German shepherd named Ranger picked up Daisy's scent from the yellow sundress Emily had slept with the night before. The dog followed the trail from the sandbox, through the loose board in the fence, along the service road for about 60 yards, then abruptly lost it near a row of overflowing dumpsters behind the houses that backed onto the preserve. The handler circled the area twice. Nothing. Crime scene techs cordoned off the spot, collected dirt samples, cigarette butts, a crumpled soda can, a few strands of dark hair that later turned out to be from a neighborhood cat. No fingerprints, no DNA hit. Helicopters from the Florida Highway Patrol started sweeps at dawn Monday. Low passes over Pine Ridge, the nature preserve, the drainage canals that snaked toward the bigger lakes. Thermal cameras picked up deer, raccoons, a couple of homeless camps under overpasses, but nothing the size of a child. Divers went into the nearest retention pond, muddy, full of lily pads and shopping carts. They surfaced empty-handed every time. Emily stood on the bank each morning, arms folded tight across her chest, refusing to leave until the teams packed up for the day. Tips flooded the hotline almost immediately. A cashier at a gas station on International Drive said she saw a girl in a yellow dress getting into a gray sedan with Florida plates around 1 p.m. Saturday. Deputies tracked the car to a family of 4 on vacation. No match. A man in Kissimmee called claiming he'd seen a child being carried into an apartment complex off Orange Blossom Trail. SWAT cleared the unit, empty except for laundry baskets. Another tip insisted Daisy had been spotted at a flea market in Sanford, sitting quietly with an older couple. Officers arrived within the hour. The girl was a 6-year-old cousin visiting from out of state. The reward climbed to $50,000 within a week. Donations from Tom's construction firm, local businesses, even anonymous envelopes slipped under the sheriff's office door. Flyers were everywhere, taped to pump handles at every gas station, pinned inside laundromats, handed out at red lights by volunteers in bright orange vests. The photo was the one from Daisy's kindergarten portfolio, her smiling wide, 2 front teeth missing, yellow dress bright against the green backdrop. Media coverage exploded. Local channels led every broadcast. Search intensifies for missing Orlando girl. CNN ran a segment by Tuesday night. Dateline and 2020 producers reached out within days. Tom and Emily held their first press conference on the front lawn Wednesday morning. Emily could barely get through her prepared statement. Her voice cracked on every other word. Tom read most of it, eyes red, jaw tight. "If anyone has our daughter, please just bring her home. We'll do anything, no questions asked." Behind closed doors, Vance's team worked 2 main angles. First, stranger abduction, a predator who had been staking out the park, waiting for a child to drift just far enough from the crowd. They pulled every registered sex offender within a 75-mile radius, hundreds of names. Alibis were checked, homes searched when warrants came through. Most had solid stories, work shifts, family members who vouched. A handful didn't. Those were watched closely. Nothing connected. Second angle, someone closer to home, a disgruntled neighbor, a relative with hidden resentment, a landscaper or delivery driver who knew the gates and routines. They interviewed every groundskeeper who worked Pine Ridge that month, every pool service guy, every Amazon driver with a route through the subdivision. They re-interviewed every parent who had been at the park Saturday, Megan included. She sobbed through her statement, saying she hadn't seen anything unusual. They even looked hard at Tom and Emily. Standard protocol. Bank accounts clean, phone records normal, no history of trouble, no motive. Psychics called in constantly. One said Daisy was near water, hidden in a blue structure. Teams searched every boathouse and shed along the lakes. Nothing. Another claimed she was alive, being raised by a couple who had lost a child of their own. Emily clung to that one for a single afternoon before Vance gently reminded her, "We follow facts, not feelings." Then the hoaxes started. Around day 9, a caller with a muffled voice said he had Daisy and wanted $75,000 wired to a Western Union in Tampa. He gave a pickup location. Stakeout team waited 12 hours. No one came. 2 days later, the same voice called again, upping the demand. Trace led to a payphone outside a convenience store. Dead end. Another tip claimed Daisy was being held in a trailer park near the turnpike. Deputies searched every unit, found nothing but old furniture and stray dogs. A woman mailed in a Polaroid of a little girl in a yellow dress, demanding part of the reward. The photo was grainy, but the child was clearly older, different hair. Each fake crushed Emily a little deeper. The community rallied hard at first. Candlelight vigils every Friday night at the park entrance. A memorial grew near the sandbox. Stuffed animals, balloons, notes in crayon. "Come home, Daisy." Volunteers kept walking the preserve even after official teams pulled back. They raked through fallen palm fronds in the fall when the undergrowth thinned. Still nothing. Vance's unit never closed the file. Every 6 months they re-interviewed key people. Every year, on May 10th, they held a quiet press briefing asking for fresh tips. The reward stayed active, but leads slowed to a trickle. The case slipped from headlines to footnotes. Flyers peeled off poles. Most neighbors stopped mentioning it around the Harpers, afraid to reopen the wound. Tom and Emily never left the house on Orchid Lane. Daisy's room stayed exactly as she left it. Bed made with the butterfly quilt, crayons lined up on the desk, yellow sundress folded on the chair. Emily started a support group for parents of missing kids. Tom buried himself in work, then in lobbying for better playground safety laws. They both aged fast. Gray streaks appeared early, lines carved deep around their eyes. Birthdays passed in silence. Holidays felt hollow. By 2008, the story had faded from public memory. The reward notices were long gone. Most people assumed the worst, but never said it out loud. Life moved forward for everyone except the two people who still checked the mailbox every single day, hoping for something, anything, that would mean their little girl was still breathing somewhere. Then, 21 years later, on a rainy Thursday in September 2018, a 26-year-old woman in North Carolina opened her DNA results, and everything changed. September 13, 2018, Charlotte, North Carolina. Mia Thompson was 26 years old, living in a cozy one-bedroom apartment in the Noda Arts District. She worked as a graphic designer for a small marketing agency. Creative days, coffee runs, occasional freelance gigs on the side. On weekends, she liked hiking in the nearby mountains or meeting friends at local breweries. Her life looked stable from the outside. Good job, close circle of friends, a rescue cat named Luna who slept on her keyboard. But underneath, Mia had always carried a faint, nagging feeling that pieces of her story didn't quite fit together. She'd been adopted as a very young child. Her parents, Robert and Karen Thompson, lived in a quiet suburb outside Charlotte. They were warm, church-attending people. Robert, a high school history teacher. Karen, a part-time florist. They had never hidden the adoption. When Mia was about 8, they sat her down with photo albums and explained that she had been a chosen miracle after years of hoping and praying. They showed her the adoption papers from Florida, dated May 12, 1997, just 2 days after Daisy Harper disappeared. The agency had moved fast, they said, a perfect match.
Mia never pushed for more details growing up. She loved her parents. They loved her. She had a happy childhood. Soccer teams, family trips to the Outer Banks, birthday parties with homemade carrot cake, her favorite. But in the spring of 2018, direct-to-consumer DNA tests were everywhere. Ads on Instagram, friends posting pie charts of their heritage. One night, after trivia at a bar, a coworker teased her. "You should do one. Maybe you're secretly Italian royalty or something." Everyone laughed. Mia laughed too. But the idea stuck. A couple weeks later, she ordered a kit from one of the big companies. She swabbed her cheek, mailed it back, and mostly forgot about it until the email arrived 6 weeks later. "Your results are ready." She opened the link on her laptop one quiet Thursday evening, rain tapping against the window. The ethnicity estimate came up first, mostly Western European, a bit of Irish, some Scandinavian, pretty standard for her known family tree. Then she clicked into the DNA matches. That's when the world tilted. The top match was a woman named Lauren Brooks, listed as close family, first cousin. Shared DNA, 910 centimorgans. Mia didn't know any Brooks. Below that were more matches, second cousins, half-second cousins, all clustered in the Orlando and Central Florida area. Surnames she'd never heard: Harper, Donnelly, Vance. Then lower down, Emily Harper, marked as a possible close relative, shared DNA over 1,300 centimorgans, the kind of number that screamed parent-child or full sibling. Her pulse spiked. She clicked Emily's public family tree.
Emily Harper, née Donnelly, married to Tom Harper. One child listed, Daisy Harper, born June 3, 1992, disappeared May 10, 1997, age 5. The date landed like a punch. May 10, 1997. Her adoption placement, May 12, 1997, 2 days apart. Mia sat frozen, staring at the screen. She opened a new tab and searched Daisy Harper, missing, Florida, 1997. Articles loaded one after another, old news clips, faded flyers, a Dateline episode from 2001. The photo appeared, a 5-year-old girl with dark ponytails, big brown eyes, yellow sundress. The resemblance was eerie, same eye shape, same slight dimple when smiling. It was like staring at a version of herself she'd never seen. She didn't sleep. She spent the night scrolling every archived article, every forum thread from the early 2000s where people still argued theories. The parents covered it up, a random predator, maybe she drowned and it was hushed. These were people talking about her birth family, people who had never stopped searching. The next morning, she called in sick. She drove the 40 minutes to her parents' house. Karen opened the door smiling, surprised. "Mia, what a treat on a weekday." Robert came in from the garage, wiping his hands on a rag. Mia sat them down at the kitchen table and placed her phone between them, screen open to the DNA results and the photo of 5-year-old Daisy. She didn't yell. She just asked, voice low, "Is this me?" Karen's face collapsed instantly. Tears welled before Mia finished the question. Robert went very still, then pale. After a long silence, he whispered, "We need to tell you everything." They spoke in pieces at first, voices shaking. They had struggled with infertility for years, tests, treatments, heartbreak. In May 1997, a woman they knew through church connections reached out quietly. A healthy 5-year-old girl needed a new home immediately. Private arrangement, cash only, no agency involved. They drove to a motel just outside Orlando 2 days after the news broke about the missing girl from Pine Ridge. A man met them in the parking lot, led them to a room where a small girl was asleep on the bed, still in her yellow dress. They took her, drove through the night back to North Carolina, and never spoke of it again. They named her Mia after Karen's grandmother. They moved to a new neighborhood 6 months later to start over. At first, they told themselves it was a legitimate private adoption, troubled family giving up custody. But when the flyers appeared in Orlando, when they saw the photo on TV, terror set in. If they came forward, they'd lose her. Prison. The girl, their daughter, taken away. So they buried it, burned the few papers they had, changed their routines, prayed no one would ever connect the dots. Mia listened without interrupting. When they finished, she felt numb, not furious, not yet, just hollow. She asked questions they couldn't fully answer. Who was the man at the motel? How much money changed hands? Did they ever try to learn the truth? They said no. Fear had paralyzed them. She left without hugging them goodbye. The next weeks were a fog. She barely ate, barely worked. She kept pulling up the photo of Daisy on her phone, comparing it to her driver's license, to old childhood pictures her parents had taken. The eyes matched, the smile matched. She read every article again, watched grainy news clips on YouTube. Emily Harper's face, older now, but still soft and hopeful, haunted her. That woman had never stopped looking. Mia thought about staying silent, living as Mia Thompson forever. But the DNA matches stared back at her, the centimorgans. The truth refused to stay hidden. On September 28, 2018, she walked into the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department. She asked to speak to someone in major crimes. Detective Elena Ruiz met her in a small room. Mia handed over a folder. printed DNA results, screenshots of the Harper family tree, news articles, her North Carolina birth certificate, the one issued post-adoption, listing Robert and Karen as parents. She told the story calmly, methodically. Her voice cracked only once when she said, "I think I'm Daisy Harper." Ruiz listened without drama, took notes, asked for a voluntary cheek swab for official comparison. Mia agreed right away. The sample was expedited to the Florida Department of Law Enforcement lab, cross-checked against the Harper profiles that had been in CODIS and the Missing Persons database since 1997. The results came back in 36 hours. Full parent-child match to Emily and Tom Harper. Probability 99.9998%. Mia Thompson was Daisy Harper.
The confirmation hit the Orange County Sheriff's Office like a lightning strike on October 1, 2018. Detective Elena Ruiz in Charlotte called Sergeant Carla Vance directly, same woman who had led the original investigation 21 years earlier and never fully let the file go. Vance was in a meeting when the call came through. She stepped out, listened for 30 seconds, then sat down hard in her chair. "You're telling me we have a match?" Ruiz confirmed the numbers again. 99.9998% probability. Full biological match. Within hours, a small task force assembled quietly. Orange County detectives, Florida Department of Law Enforcement agents, FBI child abduction rapid deployment specialists, and prosecutors from the 9th Judicial Circuit. The case wasn't cold anymore. It was breathing, urgent, and fragile. First priority? Protect Mia. She was moved to a secure location in Charlotte under FBI watch while travel arrangements were made. She agreed to full cooperation but asked for no media exposure until the arrests were complete. The team honored that. They knew the next steps would be emotional landmines. Emily and Tom Harper were called to the sheriff's office that same afternoon. They arrived expecting another routine update, something they'd done every year on May 10th for 2 decades. Instead, Vance met them in a small conference room. On the table, side-by-side photos. 5-year-old Daisy in her yellow sundress, 26-year-old Mia Thompson, same dark eyes, same gentle smile, same slight tilt to the head when posing for pictures. Emily stared, hand flying to her mouth. She didn't speak at first, just reached out and touched the photo of Mia as if it might disappear. Tom stood frozen behind her, tears already tracking down his face. Vance spoke softly. "We have DNA confirmation. Your daughter is alive. She's in North Carolina. Her name is Mia now." Emily collapsed into the nearest chair, sobs shaking her whole body. Tom dropped to his knees beside her, arms around her shoulders, whispering over and over, "She's alive! She's alive!" They asked the same question in unison. "When can we see her?" The next call was to Charlotte. Ruiz answered on the first ring. Ruiz said simply, "The results are back. You're their daughter. Emily and Tom Harper are waiting to hear from you whenever you're ready." Mia didn't cry right away. She just exhaled, a long, slow breath like she'd been holding it since childhood. Tell them I'm okay and that I want to talk soon." The arrests came swiftly and without fanfare. On the morning of October 3rd, Robert and Karen Thompson were taken into custody at their home in the Charlotte suburbs. FBI and local police arrived just after 7 a.m. Robert opened the door in pajamas, confused. Karen appeared behind him, already crying before anyone spoke. They were read their rights in the living room, while a few neighbors watched from porches. No drama, no chase, just stunned silence as they were led to waiting vehicles. In separate interview rooms at Charlotte Mecklenburg PD, they both confessed within hours. Robert went first, waiving his right to an attorney initially. He repeated much of what they'd told Mia, the infertility struggles, the desperate hope, the church acquaintance who connected them to a private opportunity in Florida. But now the details sharpened.
The intermediary was a man named Victor Vic Morales, a former handyman who did odd jobs around Orlando in the late 90s, yard work, small repairs, sometimes problem-solving for cash under the table. Vic had known the Thompsons through a mutual friend in a church singles group years earlier. In May 1997, he reached out. He had access to a healthy 5-year-old girl whose family couldn't keep her anymore. $22,000 cash, no questions. Robert admitted he suspected it was wrong almost immediately. The girl woke up confused in the car, asking for Mommy Emily and crying for her bunny. But he pushed it down. Adjustment, he told himself. By the time the news saturated every channel, they were already across state lines with forged papers Vic had arranged. Karen's interview was shorter, more tearful. She broke down repeatedly, saying she had lived in terror every single day since. She insisted she never hurt Mia, never even spanked her. She loved her completely. But she admitted seeing the missing child flyers in Orlando before they left. She recognized the face, and she stayed silent. Both were charged with felony interference with custody, conspiracy to commit child abduction, and forgery of official documents. Extradition to Florida was expedited. Meanwhile, detectives located Vic Morales living in a small apartment in Kissimmee, still doing handyman work at 58 years old. When FDLE agents knocked, he didn't run. He sat on his couch, lit a cigarette, and talked almost right away after seeing the DNA report and the Thompsons' mugshots. Vic confessed to the abduction. He'd been watching Willow Creek Park for a couple of weeks in early 1997, looking for an easy target, a child who strayed just far enough. Daisy was perfect, small, trusting, distracted by her bubbles. On May 10th, he waited in the service road behind the fence. When she squeezed through the loose board, chasing a bubble that had floated out, he stepped forward, scooped her up with one arm, covered her mouth with his hand, and carried her the short distance to his work van parked just out of sight. She was too startled to scream. He drove to a cheap motel off I-4 where the Thompsons were waiting 2 days later, took the cash, vanished. His motive? Money. No grudge against the Harpers. Pure opportunity. He'd done smaller placements before, mostly infants, but Daisy was his largest payout. He claimed he didn't realize how big the story would get until it was too late. With 3 detailed confessions on record, the state attorney's office moved quickly. No plea deal for Vic Morales. He was the direct abductor. Robert and Karen were offered reduced charges in exchange for full testimony against him. They accepted. The legal process began in early 2019. Media interest surged again, but the court kept things controlled. No cameras inside the courtroom per Florida rules. Daily briefings kept the public updated. Mia, now publicly acknowledged as Daisy Harper, did not attend any hearings. She requested and was granted anonymity during the proceedings. She was still processing what family even meant after 21 years. The trials unfolded in the summer and fall of 2019 at the Orange County Courthouse in Orlando. Media coverage was intense but restrained. No live courtroom cameras under Florida rules, only daily press briefings and artist sketches. The public followed closely. Headlines about the miracle DNA reunion and justice after 22 years.
Victor Morales was tried first, in July 2019. The courtroom filled every day. Emily and Tom Harper sat in the front row, hands clasped so tightly their fingers turned white. Witnesses included Sergeant Carla Vance, now retired but still sharp, the original canine handler, forensic techs who had preserved every scrap of evidence from 1997. The DNA charts were projected large on screens, side-by-side comparisons of 5-year-old Daisy and 26-year-old Mia, the centimorgan matches glowing in red and blue. Several jurors wiped their eyes during the presentation. Morales took the stand in his own defense. Thin, graying, voice low, he claimed diminished capacity from years of substance issues and poor decision-making. He said he never intended permanent harm, just saw an opportunity. The jury didn't buy it. After 4 days of deliberation, they returned guilty verdicts on all major counts: aggravated kidnapping of a child under 13, false imprisonment, and conspiracy to commit child abduction. Sentence: life in prison without the possibility of parole. Robert and Karen Thompson were sentenced in separate proceedings the following month. They pleaded guilty to the reduced charges: felony interference with custody and conspiracy, in exchange for their testimony against Morales. Robert received 18 years, Karen received 14. With credit for time served and good behavior, both would likely serve less than the full term, but the judge's words were clear. You stole more than a child. You stole decades from a family. Outside the courthouse after the verdicts, a small crowd had gathered. When Emily and Tom stepped out, strangers approached quietly, some hugging them, others simply saying, "Thank you for never giving up." Vigils that had once been somber turned into quiet celebrations. The community center in Pine Ridge hosted a candlelight gathering that drew hundreds. The sandbox where Daisy vanished was surrounded by fresh flowers for weeks. Willow Creek Park had been quietly renamed Daisy Harper Memorial Park years earlier. New playground equipment had been installed over time, safer slides, softer ground cover, but the layout stayed the same. A small bronze plaque near the fence read, "In memory of the day hope nearly faded, and the miracle that proved it never truly does. Daisy Harper, found 2018. On December 14, 2019, after the legal dust had settled and emotions had steadied a little, Mia flew to Florida for the first time since she was 5. The reunion was arranged privately through experienced family counselors and trauma specialists. No press, no cameras. It took place in a small, neutral conference room at a hotel near the airport. Emily and Tom waited inside, hearts racing. When the door opened and Mia walked in, tall, dark hair pulled back, those unmistakable brown eyes, Emily froze for half a second. Then she moved, arms open. Mia hesitated only a breath, then stepped forward. They met in the middle of the room in an embrace that lasted what felt like forever. Tom joined them, the three holding each other, crying, laughing through tears, saying things that had waited 22 years to be spoken.
There was no instant fairy tale fix. Mia had built a full life in North Carolina. Friends, career, routines, a sense of self tied to the name she'd grown up with. She wasn't ready to uproot everything, but she started visiting regularly. Weekly video calls, holidays together, slow, careful steps. Emily learned about Mia's childhood, the good parts, soccer games, beach trips, carrot cake birthdays. Tom showed her how to make his famous barbecue ribs, the way he'd always planned to teach his little girl. Mia shared photos of her hikes, her apartment, her cat Luna. It was awkward sometimes, painful sometimes, but it was honest. In the years that followed, Mia became an advocate, first anonymously, then publicly, for missing children, adoption reform, and the power of DNA databases in solving old cases. She spoke at conferences, pushed for stricter rules on private adoptions, and helped raise funds for search organizations. The Harpers started a small foundation in Daisy's name, supporting families during long waits, funding DNA testing for cold cases, teaching child safety without spreading fear. Mia kept both names in her heart, Legally, she became Daisy Mia Harper Thompson, but in everyday life, she remained Mia to most people, adding Daisy when it felt right. She never erased the 22 years she lived as someone else. She simply wove them into the larger story. By the spring of 2023, on the anniversary of that May Day in 1997, the three of them returned to Daisy Harper Memorial Park together. They sat on the same bench Emily had once waited on, watching children play on the updated equipment. A little girl in a yellow dress ran past, laughing, chasing bubbles that floated high into the palm trees. Mia smiled softly. Emily reached over and squeezed her hand. "She's home," Emily said quietly. Tom nodded, eyes on the playground. "We all are." And for the first time in a very long time, it felt completely true. Before we close this story, thank you for staying with me through every part, from that sunny Saturday disappearance in a crowded Florida park to the long-awaited homecoming after more than 20 decades. If this tale held you, moved you, or reminded you how precious every moment with loved ones can be, hit that like button right now. Share it with anyone who loves emotional, real-feeling mysteries that highlight hope, science, and never giving up. And if you're new here, subscribe and turn on notifications. We've got more stories coming. One last note. This entire account of Daisy Harper's disappearance, the decades-long search, the DNA breakthrough, and the reunion is a work of fiction. It was created for entertainment and to shine a light on very real things: the importance of child safety in everyday places, the life-changing power of modern DNA technology for cold cases, and the incredible strength of hope and family bonds. In real life, stranger abductions of young children are extremely rare, but they do happen. Fast response, community support, persistence, and advances in forensics can sometimes bring miracles. Thank you for listening. Stay safe out there, hold your loved ones close, and remember, the world can feel dark, but light has a way of finding its path back.